Good Yontif. And Yasher Koach to our temple singers. It's wonderful to hear you and to sing with you. The pomegranate is one of the 7 species that we enjoy on Shavuot, one of the indigenous fruits of the land of Israel. And it's my pleasure to call attention to a new art installation of a beautiful rimon, of a pomegranate, here at Holy Blossom Temple on the 3rd floor. It was designed by Phyllis Cincinnatus. It was crafted by Mike Morgulis. It was curated by Martha Cass. And it's quite beautiful, and it is the capstone, its installation is the capstone of our celebrations of 25 years of my time with this congregation, and still counting. I'm going for 72. Because the weather is on our side, our Kiddush lunch will be waiting for us on the plaza, just through these main doors under the rose window. So please find your bagels waiting for you there. And if you should benefit from a ramped exit, our ushers can help you make your way just through the Herman Chapel here. Maybe we could turn those lights on, and we'll meet you on the plaza. And today's Congregational Kiddush is generously sponsored in part by the Perlmutter family in honor of the yahrzeit of Moshe and Mary Perlmutter, and also in celebration of our Pirchei Kodesh Society. Mazel Tov to all of you. The walk with Israel. We went to be seen, we went to be counted. The planning was practical and physical. Where the barriers would be, where to park, what flag to carry, what button to wear, what clothing to wear for the ever-changing weather in just a few hours. Some wondered if their knees could handle the hills. Some wondered if they should bring their children this year or not. And then there were the endless layers of securing the physical route, and we thank the UJA, we thank the Toronto Police and all the levels of security who helped us to be safe and feel safe. 50,000 strong. We made the news not only here in Canada, but also in Israel, which delights me because, as you know, Israelis are feeling more and more alone all the time. So for them to know that Toronto Jewry and our friends and allies are with them is essential. And then, to our surprise, the walk very quickly took an emotional, even spiritual purpose. We were more than 50,000 bodies walking physically up Bathurst Street. More than that, we were 50,000 souls. Still only a fraction of those who stood at Sinai to receive Torah. But we were there in good number. We were, as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel famously said, praying with our legs. It was a prayer in motion, a prayer for the hostages and their families, a prayer for the soldiers and their families, a prayer for the thousands of evacuees living more than 8 months in hotel rooms with no sign of being able to safely return to their homes. Our walk was a prayer for the dead, a prayer for the wounded, a prayer for the violated. Our walk was a prayer for the demonstrators in Israel who exemplify the strength of Israel's democracy by showing up every Saturday night for 13 months now. Most recently, counting 120,000 souls in the streets of Tel Aviv. Our walk was a prayer for Israel's leaders, the ones who are in power now and the ones who are emerging. Our walk was a prayer for our own leadership right here in Canada, a prayer for our own students on the university campuses here, a prayer for our children in Jewish schools, a prayer for our synagogues, coast to coast, a prayer for the proud story of the Canadian Jewish community, past, present, and future. Our walk was the walk of mourners, getting up from Shiva. That's what it felt like. You who have mourned, you who have sat Shiva for your dear ones, you know what it feels like to get up and to go for that walk, that first deep and restorative breath of fresh air after sitting inside on low chairs for 7 days. It feels good to finally stretch and to move our bodies. That ritualized walk that reminds us that we will not always be bent with sorrow. We will find our feet again. We will find our way again. And we will walk confidently and with dignity and with the fullness of life, free from fear, once again. Before October 7th, the blessing which we offer to mourners when they get up from Shiva, that formulaic blessing which we offer for the mourners when they leave the graveside of their dear ones at the cemetery, it never quite resonated, with me at least, as much as it does now after October 7th. What do we pray for our mourners? Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'a avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you. May God, who is everywhere, comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Those words resonate now in new ways, in stirring and gripping ways. It's unclear where this traditional greeting for mourners came from. What was its origin? Who are the mourners of Zion that are referenced? One theory is the mourners of Zion are the Jews who fled Jerusalem during the Crusades. Who are the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem today? They are too many to count. Those who mourn today are in very good company. So let us be in their company today. Who are the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem? Thousands upon thousands. The family members of hostages held in Gaza. They came on Sunday to attend the funeral of Arnon Zmora, the counter-terror officer killed on Shabbat during that broad daylight rescue mission for 4 living captives. Thousands upon thousands attended his funeral. And even before the funeral, they gathered in a processional outside the Zmora's family home in the nearby town of Mivatzeret Zion, waving Israeli flags in tribute to the fallen soldier. And then they were joined at Mount Herzl Military Cemetery. That funeral was attended by Israel Police Commissioner, who delivered a eulogy on behalf of Israel's police, saying, "Arnon, I knew you, and I heard a lot about you. You fought on October 7th in the kibbutzim surrounding Gaza. You participated in countless activities and operations that will forever be hidden from the public eye. But I know." And so the daring operation on Shabbat is now named Operation Arnon in his honor. A deputy commissioner, the commander of the Yamam elite unit, his name is only in the papers with the first letter of his name. He said in a eulogy that Arnon, the name of Arnon, is mentioned in the book of Numbers. It's a landmark, a physical stop along the journey of the Israelites through the wilderness on their way to the promised land. It is written in our Torah, from there they traveled to the Arnon, which is in the wilderness extending into Amorite territory. The Arnon is the border of Moab, from where Ruth came from. Arnon fell as a heroic and extraordinary operation, rescuing the 4 hostages, bringing them back to Israel along the way to the promised land, along the way to the land of their ancestors. So after all of the military leaders spoke, Arnon's widow, Michal, was the last to speak by design. It was her request that she would speak last. So when we say, Hamakom yinachem etchem, may God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, she is among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Let us be with her on this day of Yizkor. She said, eulogizing her husband, I asked to speak last because the commanders I knew would talk about what a hero you were. So now everyone knows of your heroism, but more than everything, you were a sweet man, full of laughter and sensitivity and compassion. You have been my spouse for the last 12 years, and for the last 8 years, you have been the perfect father to our 2 children. It's important to me that these things are said last, after the stories of heroism, so that they will be the words that resonate long after. Arnon, we raised our 2 wonderful children together, my love, whose worlds fell apart in an instant. I am enveloping them and protecting them now, and I know you know that. And I also know that you know that I know your final thought in those split seconds when you realized your death was coming, you thought of us. Arnon, in the end, the children and I will be fine, she said through tears. They will know how much of a hero their father was, how many lives he saved, yes, but much more than that, they will remember how much fun they had with you, riding bikes, playing the guitar, lighting a bonfire, eating ice cream, having fun together, and being a family. How are we among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem today? There is a hint in the book of Ruth. We see through the characters there that everyone grieves differently. And in this room, everyone grieves uniquely. There are the leading characters, Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. Ruth responds to grief by tightening her grip, by cleaving to her mother-in-law, shouldering Naomi's grief, saying, wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Your people, my people, your God, my God. The bereaved Ruth burns with purpose and mission. That is one model of grief. It may resonate with some of you. And then there is Orpah, another model of grief. Orpah leaves. She walks away from the place and the people associated with her husband who died too young. And no one can blame her for it. Not Ruth, not Naomi, not the anonymous narrator of the book. No one criticizes or doubts Orpah's decision. It's understandable that she would return to her family of origin in Moab in search of comfort and another chance at life. But we don't know how she fares back in Moab. She walks off the biblical page forever obscured from view, and we can never know what became of her or of her grief. And some people mourn like that, entirely, privately, entirely cut off from others. And then there's the model of Naomi. She returns to Bethlehem, where she once raised a family with her husband, but now there is only an empty house there. And she describes herself as empty, a shell of the person her friends once knew. And here's the learning. Here's the teaching, the insight about how we can be among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We see it from the friends. Naomi's friends from long ago are minor characters. We don't know their names, but they show us how to be among the mourners of Zion. It is written that they ask, first of all, is this Naomi? Could it be? Because of her grief, she was almost unrecognizable. Like the mourners of Zion today, she must have been thinner and more frail. Like Hirsch's mother, Rachel, pain etched into her face. And Naomi insists, she tells her friends, do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara. Do not call me pleasantness. Call me bitterness, for the Lord has dealt bitterly with me. I went away full from this place, and the Lord brings me back empty. It's true, Naomi has been dealt a bitter hand, like many of the mourners among us in this sacred place today. Naomi was robbed of her capacity to enjoy the pleasantness of life. Her grief was so intense and so bitter, it became her very identity. But her friends, who knew how to comfort in the most extraordinary way, said, we will refuse to call you Mara. We will deny you that request. We will call you Naomi. As it is written, the women said to Naomi, blessed be the eternal God who has not left you this day, who has not abandoned you this day. Blessed be the Lord who has not withheld redemption from you this day. The friends know that they will never be able to lift Naomi up from her grief all alone, and so they invoke God's name, as we will in just a moment in our Yizkor prayers. Those who mourn today notice the words of faith of Naomi's friends. Notice their strength of spirit to invoke God's name when family and friends are not enough to see us through our grief. That's when we turn to God for comfort. And this is why we have come to this sanctuary on this Yizkor day. Not only to be comforted among fellow mourners, fellow congregants, fellow Jews, among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, but also to be comforted by Hamakom, by God, who is the place that can hold our grief, the place that can contain our grief and carry it, the place that can lift up our grief, because God is so much larger than our grief. Some days our grief seems large enough to swallow us whole, but God is larger still. Good people, we have lost so much this year. Each one of us is mourning now. On this festival of Shavuot, we carve out just a few moments to grieve our personal losses, to grieve our collective losses. And we will walk together. We will refuse to call one another Mara, bitterness. We will refuse to call ourselves Mara. We will insist on calling one another Naomi, pleasantness, until that is what we see in ourselves again. We will bless one another with the prayer that binds us one to the other across time and space. Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'a avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God, who is everywhere, comfort us among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Amen.